Hi, I'm Hina Siddiqui, and you are listening to the Corporate Life Podcast. We are in season 3, where every life is a movie and you are the star of yours. So step into the spotlight, the world is watching. Most people see a bottle of Bailey's or Johnny Walker Blue Label and think of a global brand, but very few know the real minds behind it. Today I'm speaking with James Espey, the man behind the launch of some of the most iconic spirits on this planet, like Bailey's, a wild idea turned global number one liquor. Malibu, a playful rum that conquered continents. Johnny Walker Blue Label, created to position Scotch as luxury. Chivas Regal 18, launched as a direct response and a bold one. And behind every brand was a belief the customer is the real CEO, not the chairman. James shares the real stories, the tensions, the risks, the boardroom drama, and how teamwork, not ego, built empires. This isn't just a business story, it's a masterclass in legacy, loyalty, and long game leadership. Let's get into it. James, before the world knew your name, before Seagram, Glenlivet, and Johnny Walker, who was James Espey?
He's never changed. He's just James Espey. And obviously, I had a tough start in my life. My parents were divorced. I was sent to boarding school 4 days and 4 nights away from home. I only went home twice a year. I was one of the poorest children at school, but had a reasonable brain, and I liked sports. In my day, there was no such thing as television and things of that nature. I did quite well at school, and then I went to go to university, and I was going to become an accountant because I won the bookkeeping prize. But when I qualified in accounting, I found that I could not afford to live on the salary being paid to be an article clerk because I had no money. But I had discovered marketing from an amazing professor at Harvard, whose book I discovered, called Ted Levitt. And so I also studied marketing, and so I went into marketing instead and joined SPAR in the grocery trade. SPAR is a voluntary grocery trade. Now, what people don't really appreciate today is that supermarkets and self-service really only took off in the 60s. Before that, you had tiny little shops with people standing on ladders, climbing up ladders to get the goods from the shelf. So I got heavily involved in teaching self-service and going around talking about self-service supermarkets. It was a very interesting time, and it taught me a very important lesson, which is very few serious people understand. There's only one boss in business. The real boss is the customer who votes with his or her feet. They decide on the future. If you have no customers, you have no business. If you don't sell books, you don't make business, whatever it is. Anyway, then the newfangled MBA degree was taken off all over the world, and Cape Town University started the Graduate School of Business in 1966. So in 1968, I did an MBA degree. And it was one of the best things I ever did because it gave me a broad perspective on business and lots of confidence. And I think it accelerated my personal belief by about 5 years. But in those days, you had to also do a thesis to complete your MBA. So mine was on canned soft drinks in South Africa. There were no canned soft drinks at that stage. And they offered me the job of running the canning division, but I was headhunted to join the liquor trade and joined what it would today be the South African subsidiary of Diageo. It was Gilby, South Africa, part of International Distillers and Vintners, which was part of Grand Metropolitan, which was the other half of Diageo. And I was 26 and I was the sales manager. And I inherited a sales force of alcoholics, all had chauffeurs, all had drunk at lunch, because remember, there were no supermarkets. They were just beginning. They would go to bars and nightclubs and buy everyone drinks and drink. And they looked at a 26-year-old as their boss. They couldn't believe it. The first time I went out with them, I drank exactly the same as them. I was very fit. Can't believe how much I drank. But the second time I went out, I wouldn't drink. And then I employed the first female rep. And then I employed the first teetotaler as a liquor rep. And then I promoted the first black sales manager in South Africa in a time of apartheid. It was a very interesting time of challenge. It was a time of much change, and I was very heavily involved in growing the company in South Africa. But in 1976, I gave a speech in London to a global conference of our group about brand building. And unbeknown to me, somebody recommended to the new chief executive who joined a few months later, Anthony Tennant, who became Sir Anthony Tennant, who was involved in Diageo, that he should look at this fellow Espey, because Tennant wanted to put marketing global, make it totally global and not just have little islands all over the world. So he interviewed me in South Africa, and I didn't even know that because I drove him 500 miles and got a speeding fine. He was interviewing me the whole way. And at 11 o'clock at night, I was driving him to a 500-mile journey. He offered me the job in London on a 6-month trial. If I succeeded, I joined the board. If I failed, I'd be shipped back to South Africa. And I arrived in London. I said, good Lord, who is this savage from the colonies? He doesn't even know how to pass the port properly. Anyway, I went through all that. And this first non-Englishman, and I was British. And 6 months later, I joined the board. And my first job was to build Bailey's, head up federal marketing, and head up innovation. And I met a wonderful man who invented Bailey's called Tom Jago. He was a creative genius. I've got a picture of him on my desk because he's dead now, sadly, but I look at Tom every day. We worked together for 40 years all over the place, never had one argument. A perfect marriage. I don't know many of that like that. So Tom was this creative genius. My job was to be a strategic marketer and a brand builder. And so we made changes to Bailey's, and Bailey's took off. Today it's the #1 liqueur in the world, selling 8 million cases, worth quite a few billion. I then launched Malibu, which started in South Africa originally. Mandela was in jail. It was still apartheid. It was a brand that we created in South Africa called Coco Rico. I thought this could be good. So I brought it to London, bottled it in Harlow, Essex, would you believe? Changed the name because Tom had a trademark in the cupboard to Malibu, and we call it Malibu Caribbean Style Rum. And we quoted this because I love Cape Town. It comes from paradise and tastes like heaven. Malibu took off. Today, of course, it comes from the Caribbean. Everyone thinks that's where it started. And Puerto Rico now owns it and sells about 4 million cases. So those two brands have made quite a few billion.
Yeah.
Would you believe it? The way it was in those days. Tom and I
Very
never got a penny bonus.
interesting. It's very interesting. I would like to just ask you this question here that what got you into the liquor industry? Were you very interested in drinking or were you drinking a lot or what? Like, why that industry and not anything
Not
else?
really. What happened was I didn't like a bit of wine and I was interested. But when I did my MBA, I was headhunted and I said no and I joined Coca-Cola. They
Yeah.
came for me again and made me an exciting job. And I thought, it's fun. Also, I love Cape Town. It was back in the Cape. And my office was in the heart of the wine lands. And I also launched a wine brand in South Africa, which did very well. So it seemed a nice life. And I've been very privileged because I've always enjoyed the liquor industry. Yes, there are politics and issues, but it's fun. I'm not selling tables. I'm not selling chairs. I'm not selling nappies. I'm selling
Yeah.
something that I think is exciting and fun. And
Yeah.
everyone in the world can relate to it. So I've
Yeah.
been very privileged nearly 60 years.
This is very interesting. And I also would like to ask you this question as you just were talking about you and your boss, like you did not have a single argument for so many years. So, because now when we see in the leadership positions, there are lots of employee conflicts, boss, managers, the subordinates,
Well, Tom wasn't my boss. He was my partner. I was his
your,
boss.
your partner. All right. What was there like? What do you think was the reason for no argument kind of chemistry
We
between the two of
respected each
you?
other. We had respect. We had mutual respect. We had differences, different background, but we understood at the end of the day, we've got to keep the only boss that matters is the customer.
Yeah.
So all of our debates are about what makes it better for the customer. How do we distribute better? How do we market it better? How do we position it better? What's exciting? And also not to be too greedy. Too many businesses are short term.
Yeah.
They bring out, and I'm worried about that today because suddenly you're seeing lots of brands with about 4 or 5 or 6 variations. And I worry about it. It's if like every new person that comes into the company suddenly wants to bring out a new sub brand. You must never lose focus on your prime brand. Yes, extend it, do it carefully, but ultimately you should take a long-term attitude. And I've never taken an attitude of less than 10 years.
Yeah, I also think that today in the modern world, it's more egocentric. Like people come from the ego, like they operate from their business from the ego. And then it's like everybody is just in that kind of conflict, which is
Correct.
polluting the environments, the office environments and the workplaces.
You're quite right. I think there's too many egos. And, we won't discuss presidents around the world, but I don't believe in the word I. I believe in the word we.
Yeah, I
Even if
love
you
that.
even if you think I say we are building this company, we are doing things, not I, we are doing it. And the word team stands for together everyone achieves more. There's no I in the word team.
Yeah.
And I don't think the world leaders in the world don't understand that enough.
This is a big message to the leadership world today and to the corporate industry today that it's when we work on that we instead of I, then things change and it can get lots more, business and success to the corporations. This
You
is
see, one of the things I also am a great believer that you have to have courage and you have to stand out and be
yeah,
prepared to be different. Now, for example, for innovation, you can't have a committee. I always tell people that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee. You see, I believe in advisory boards.
Yeah.
So when I headed up innovation working with Tom, we had about 10 people who would advise us,
Yeah.
but we would listen to them, and then we'd make the decision.
Yeah.
You can't vote 5-4, we'll launch this brand. And usually, because few people want to stand out, there are not enough people in business who've got the courage to stand out. Too many people
Yes.
are only interested in their promotion. What
Yeah.
can I do to get promotion? Or
Yeah.
what can I do to get my bonus? And
That's so
that's the
true.
wrong attitude entirely.
Yeah, that's really true that people are just focused on getting money, and because they are chasing money, the money is always out of reach. So it's more of like, even if they get money, there lots of pressure and stress builds up in the everyday life. So this is interesting that when we work on the mission rather than the money, because money has to follow ultimately, right? There's no other way that money will
Yeah.
not come to you. So it's just very interesting that focus on the mission and creating the culture and the brand and the product that you are building. So this is interesting. My next question to you is that was there any turning point, a decision, a setback, or any conversation that changed your entire trajectory into the world of iconic liquor brands?
I've always believed in iconic liquor brands, but I did have, without being too specific, I had an issue at one stage, or two stages, where clearly you deal with politics. And somebody saw me politically as a threat to his career, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not a threat to his career. I'm very loyal.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave the company and go somewhere else. But I still loved what I do. And strangely enough, I then went, when I was at Chivas Regal, it was a very interesting decision. I joined Chivas Regal on two conditions. And I was very friendly with head of global strategy for Chivas, for Seagram, which was at that stage a US company which is gone. The Bronfmans owned the company, but Ed McDonald was my boss. And he and I are great friends. He's turning 90 this week. We're great friends.
Yeah.
And Ed said, James, you like working with me. We can do things together. I said, Ed, the two conditions. I want a 3-year contract with 2 years' notice. He said, why? I said, I'll probably get fired. I'm very outspoken. I tell the truth. I said, secondly, here's the crazy one. I want you to let me spend $100 million. And it's in his book he wrote. What? He said, yes. I said, I want to take Chivas Regal from less than 2 million cases to over 5 million, over 20 years, 25 years.
Wow.
And he thought I was crazy. Anyway, I got it. I spent $10 million on upgrading all the distilleries, making them look great, and $90 million on investing in the future of stock. They got to 5 million cases recently. But funny, and I had invented Johnny Walker Blue Label, which was called Johnny Walker Oldest when I launched it.
Yeah.
And I wanted a brand to compete with Johnny Walker Blue Label. So I decided to launch, we own Royal Salute, yes, 20. So I launched a brand called Chivas Regal 18. And when I launched, shortly after, they fired me. The Bronfman family did not believe in it. I was told my father invented Chivas 12, there will not be an 18. I said, you're wrong. Well, would you believe, 3 months ago, it's now owned by Pernod Ricard. The chairman of Pernod Ricard ensured that my wife and I were VIP guests in Scotland to thank us for what we'd done 30 years ago. They've achieved 5 million. They made 4 or 5 billion probably as a result of it.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting time, but obviously I was very depressed when I lost that job. And it set me back a lot.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure whether I wanted to continue with the liquor industry. But anyway, eventually I did.
Yeah. This is very interesting. And I would also like to know a few challenges that you had along the way, because I know that the reaching a point where you were and launching the kind of brands that you have, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of failures also, because no success story is ever complete without failures. So
Correct.
failure is just a part of every success, right? And most people, ignore that. They think that it's a overnight success kind of thing, and they just can't believe that a lot has happened in the background to have that moment happened. So would you like to discuss a few challenges in the liquor industry specifically?
Well, specifically, the biggest challenge is always short-term ego.
Yeah.
When I joined Seagram Chivas, the bonuses were quite big. Now, I said in my book, which applied to me, if you've got a bonus only has 3 purposes in life. Pay the mortgage, pay the school fees, and plan for your pension. If you live on your bonus, you then expect your bonus every year. If you expect your bonus every year, you make the wrong decisions because you
Yeah.
become short-term greedy. So I had this problem to deal with. I also had the problem that I was the first person in charge of Chivas worldwide. Before, it was run by the individual regions. So suddenly they had me asking them questions, and I had a lot of opposition. And I would find, for example, that if I allocated $10 million to spend in, say, Asia,
Hmm.
they'd immediately take $3 million out and save it for profit protection. So
Hmm.
there were a lot of politics. And I've always had to deal with politics. I never accepted it, I dealt with it, but I had to deal with it because I find more people are short term. Most people are short term thinkers. They
Yes.
don't think out. They don't think of the future. I mean, even going back when I was at IDV in the early days, J&B was our number one brand. But one of the executives who was very senior in J&B didn't like that. In fact, we were growing other brands. We built Bailey's, we built Malibu, because suddenly he wasn't the king anymore.
Hmm.
And you get this ego. So I find egos are a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Short-termism is a big problem. But at the same time, it was a lovely industry. And the nice thing about the Scotch whisky industry is when we all swapped whiskies, it was very healthy in Scotland. It's not as nice as it was in my time. It was fun. You respected people. So I look back and I'm lucky.
Yeah. The gratitude is also one of the biggest things that gets you there, right? When you think that you are lucky and you keep on going. And I'm sure that building those brands and just working until here, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of bold decisions. So any boldest decision that you have taken in your career so far in the businesses?
Well, I've taken a lot of bold decisions, to be honest, but I believe luck is 90% hard work, by the way. I say that in my book. What I tried to do, I've written 2 doctorates. They're all here in my office. They're action learning doctorates. So what I did is, for example, I took over running the UK operation for IDV. The profit had been flat for 4 years at 6 million. I looked at and analyzed the various things, thought I could get it to 20 million within 5 years. So I did a doctorate. But what I did is I wrote to the top 100 managers. 65, 70 replied to me. I said, I want no personal comments about people, but tell me how I can make the company better. Now, I knew what I wanted to do, but some of them were quite good comments. And I put all these comments together, and then I presented it to the whole company as our strategy,
Yeah.
not my strategy, our strategy.
Yeah.
And that helped enormously to get people focused. And we got to 20 million in 4 years. So,
Wow.
it was an interesting time. And I always come back, the most important assets in any organization is not the brand, it's the people that build the brand.
Yeah.
What happened to IBM, for example? Things are changing. And one of the other things I believe passionately, you've got to understand the changing environment. You've got to study the world. You've got to look at the way the environment's changing. I mean, we've got different issues now called global heating, population changes. Everyone in the world's got a mobile phone. There's nowhere to hide anymore. So you've got to analyze the world constantly in whatever product or brand you're selling. And how does it fit in? For example, I launched Chivas Regal in China in 1993. Why? Because I saw China suddenly opening up. So I went to China wearing a kilt, holding a bottle of Chivas Regal on television saying, drink less, drink better. I didn't mean drink less. I meant drink better. And we got up to 800,000 cases at one stage.
Yeah.
But what you've also got to find, when you build brands internationally, you've got to find local brand ambassadors. So you've got to find local people who also become passionate, be part of that journey.
Yeah.
And I learned this a long way away because I remember a chap who's a friend of mine now. When I was living in South Africa and I was building J&B whiskey as the brand, a new man joined the company and he came out to South Africa and he started telling me what to do. I said, no, you don't tell me what to do. You tell me what the global strategy is.
Yeah.
My job is to interpret it locally. We became good friends. And I think you have a global strategy. Certain numbers are bad in parts of the world. Certain colors are bad. You've got to respect the local environment. And another thing I always encourage people to do, wherever you go, eat the local food.
Yeah.
First time I went to Japan in 1977, they took me to a French restaurant. I said, I want to eat Japanese. No, arigato. And, eat the local food, learn a few words like please and thank you, because remember, English may be their third language.
Yes.
So it's again, respect for the local, but find a local brand ambassador if you can in every market. And also don't rush to too many markets too quickly. Start at 1 or maximum 2 markets, learn, make your mistakes, improve, and then go out.
Yeah, I love that. And respect the culture. This is so important because it comes from this respect that you're giving to the culture, and then
Correct.
people would start trusting you.
Correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. In 1994, you received the Queen's Award. In that moment, standing at Buckingham Palace, what was running through your mind about the path you have traveled to get there?
Well, I thought I was very privileged. I thought I was very privileged, very lucky. Funnily enough, in 1994, I went to Buckingham Palace to collect the Queen's Award for exports for the company.
Yeah, yeah.
And I met the Queen, Your Majesty. It's an amazing lady. I have nothing but admiration and respect for this incredible lady.
Hmm.
And then Prince Philip said to me with a sense of humour, "Are you exporting that filthy buck of yours abroad?" I said, "Sir, we're making much needed currency for this country." And he laughed in a sense of
Yeah.
humour. And then 20 of us out of 200 were chosen to have a drink with the Queen. And she came up to me, "Ma'am, I'm terribly sorry, I don't drink your whiskey." I said, "Ma'am, the chairman of Famous Grass is a very good friend of mine." And
Yeah.
she was the most amazing. And, it made me proud of our Queen, but it was a humbling moment too. I said I was privileged
Yes.
when I got my award. It was partly because I created a society called the Keepers of the Quaich,
Yeah.
which is the top whiskey society in the world today. And we only induct about 80 people a year. And I launched that in 1988. And it's become a phenomenal success. And I've personally had Ronald Reagan as my guest speaker. I
Hmm.
had I got F.W. de Klerk, the South African ex-president, as a speaker. And we've had amazing speakers. We've had Prince Charles. We've had Princess Anne when he was prince. And it's a whole little ceremony, and people are desperate to
Yeah.
become keepers of the Queen. So that had a lot to do with it. Building whiskey brands, that society, the keepers of the Queen, honoured people from all over the world who had contributed to building Scotch. So again, we've got something like 450 to 16, 17 chapters around the world now. So I'm most proud of that in many ways because it's not for profit. It was something to help the industry.
Yeah, this is so interesting, and I'm sure that it must be really, really, of course, humbling, but then feeling privileged about it, feeling proud of your journey, and it seems like it was all worth it.
And I'd also say, my wife was fantastic.
Hmm.
I met her in the liquor trade. She was a brilliant corporate wife. She did fantastically well. And my children got heavily involved, even. And my daughter, when she was 14, one of my daughters wrote a thesis on one of the whiskey distilleries, and she now works for the Worshipful Company Distillers, running their charity.
That,
So, my family have been supportive because I traveled 10 days a month for 20 years.
yeah,
That wasn't easy, but equally, I'm a great believer. No chief executive should sit in his office or sit in his or her office. You've got to get out and meet the customers. Now, the customers is the ultimate, but en route to the customers, you've got to get to know the trade. You've got to win the hearts and minds of the trade who help you get through to the customers.
yeah. James, when the bottles are empty and numbers fade, what do you hope people remember you for? Not just for the sale, for the product, but something deeper.
I think for building people and helping people build their careers. My interest is helping young people develop their careers and giving back. I'm a
Yeah,
great believer that I didn't have anyone mentoring me and helping me, and that's why I wrote 2 books to help people.
yeah,
And I want to, in the long run, for having respect, build a team of great people wherever I went. That's what I hope will be remembered. I can't guarantee it. I wouldn't know, but I'd like to think. And I have a lot of friends. I found a letter from someone today recently who thanked me so much for what he had done for him when I lost my job. He said he couldn't understand why. And we're still friends 25 years later.
yeah. This is amazing. Like your journey has been incredible, not just from the accomplishment point of view, but from the human side, right? The kind of habits that you practice, the kind of respect for the cultures and seeing customers as the king and all that stuff. This is all incredible, lessons for the people who are listening to us right now. Was there ever a time you questioned everything, your role, your direction, or your purpose? Because it happens many a times, like when we reach a certain point, when we have achieved a lot of success, then we start feeling that, is that all it, And then,
Well, it's a good
yeah,
question because I had a breakdown. I'd been a push myself all my life. When I lost my job wrongly, I had a breakdown.
yeah.
And I was in the hospital for 8 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And I had 8 electric shock treatments. And I'm quite open about it because I've helped people. Because I think we live in a very stressed world today. And I
Yes.
think mental health is one of the greatest problems facing society. And we've got to address this properly. And so we've got to help people. That's why even in my books I talk about it. And I'm a great believer that companies must respect that more. Now, some people may use it as an excuse, but in the main, you've got to help people and you've got to understand that people are your main asset. How do you help and guide people? So yeah, I went through a difficult time, and then I rebuilt my career. I became a non-executive director, sat on a number of boards. Funny enough, one of them I was drinking a drink today is a soft drink called Iron Brew. I was on their board for 10 years. And I joined the board of White and Mackay, a Scotch whisky company. And I joined the board of a brewing company, and then I joined the board of a shoe company called Church Shoes. And I learned from that as well, a different world.
Yeah, yeah.
And then at 65, I decided, with no money, when I've traveled in corporate life, I flew first class, even in Concorde and use of a jet, but never get carried away. One of the quotes in my book is a picture of a man sitting in the back of a car on blocks and says, you're no longer chairman when you sit in the back of the car and it doesn't move.
Mm.
Too many people are arrogant. Do you
Mm.
know who I am? That's absolute rubbish. So
Yeah.
I went back and I launched my own whiskey called The Last Drop. I was 65. Tom was in his early 80s. And I went out, paid myself nothing, went around and everyone thought this would fail. I went around the world, economy class, staying in the cheapest hotels, taking no salary. But I launched selling the world's most exclusive spirits collection called The Last Drop. And, it was hard work. It was a struggle. But eventually we sold the company to Sazerac, a US company, and it's a very super premium brand in their great portfolio today. But that was very satisfying because I did it with Tom's support, but he couldn't travel anymore. Just me, again, reaching out to friends around the world I'd got to know in the trade who helped me.
Yeah.
That was an important part of it as well. But you have to find a distributor in China. I had to find a distributor in Taiwan. I had to find a distributor in the USA. But it took its time. But anyway, so in many ways, I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that's very nice. And the message here is that like life will happen to us, and there would be failures, there would be setbacks, there would be things that we would not enjoy. We would actually will just have kind of breakdowns.
Correct.
Then never give up and just keep going and think about what can bring us back to
I
our.
think it's important. And it's also
Yeah.
important, I might write a third book, which would be how to get the best out of old age. I haven't thought
Yeah.
about it yet. But I
Okay.
mean, I've written the two young books to help the next generation because I'm a great believer also
Yeah.
that if you retire early and you do nothing, you're wasting your life.
Yeah.
You've got to be physically active, whatever that is, and you've got to be mentally active. I'm chairman of a startup English whiskey company, as you know,
Yeah.
and I hope we'll sell it before I turn 90. I'm
Mm.
82 now. So,
Yeah.
that's my attitude. I like to be mentally active, but don't, as you get older, try and find things that are not stressful.
I love
That's
that.
different. But
Yeah.
be busy mentally. And part of being mentally active is helping people. If
Yeah.
you can help people, and a lot of what I'm doing now is marketing my books. I won't make money out of my books. I may never make any money. But if I help people, then I feel a reward.
Yeah, yeah. This is very humbling thing for you to say that your whatever experience you have gained so far, what all you have seen in life and experienced all that, and now you have put that through your books to the people for the future generation, like for the future leaders and for the current leaders, of course.
Yeah. That's my first book, which is Rebuilt, How to Make Your Mark in the Workplace.
Yeah.
This will help people accelerate their career. One of my reviewers called it the £10.99 MBA degree from the University of Life.
Wow. This is
And then because young people have a very short attention span,
yes.
they remember quotes. I wrote this book, 365 quotes
Yeah.
to accelerate your career and find balance in life. So bring it out together.
This is amazing. Talk a bit about your book, James.
Well,
If
what
you
I did, I
like.
spent 25 years collecting ideas and thoughts,
Yeah.
things that I thought were you, and I just kept them in an inbox. And then one day I thought, I'm ready to write a book. And I contacted a very charming lady and I had written speeches and collect articles, but I read a very charming lady, and I got a female illustrator to help me to make sure I was politically correct and did everything right in the modern world.
Hmm.
And so I paid her, and she's my friend today, and we're great friends. And I wrote the book because I thought, if I could help one or two people. Now, I haven't sold all that many, but I'm now at this stage, but I'm now marketing these books. I'm now marketing them quite actively. I'm working on marketing them, so I'm doing quite a few things. And indirectly, that's why we met. And I met a lovely, charming lady who's now in Malta, who was from Canada, and she's helping me work on marketing the books because I felt people just don't have time. Everyone's in a hurry. We all too much of this.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
don't relax enough. We don't switch off our iPads or don't switch off our iPhones. So I thought I could write. That's why I wrote the second book, just short quotes. But every 10 pages, I have an illustration, a
Yeah.
picture. So, for example, here's one. Willing horses get overloaded.
Hmm.
Willing horses get overloaded. You see a picture of a horse because you can't take on every job.
Yes.
You've got to find somewhere. You've got to stand up. And I just talk about little things I learned. What's the right thing? What are your priorities? I also believe you can't keep a pack of dogs and do all the barking yourself. You've got
Hmm.
to learn to delegate. So you've got to
Yeah.
build a team and try and employ people who are brighter than better than you, if you can, and build the team and have fun. Use the word we, not I. So I wrote the book based on, I want to talk about failure. I talk about being fired. I said, my chapter's called, It's
Hmm.
Not So Bad Being Fired.
Hmm.
Although I went through a tough time, as you know, it rebuilt my life. And then I started backing people, and I got heavily involved backing a young chap who'd been at my school in Cape Town, who started a software company called Mimecast. Well, Mimecast started this office where I'm sitting now. I backed him. He was 28. It floated on the Nasdaq in America. It was sold 80. I sold most of the shares I had at $10. This company was acquired in 22 for $5.6 billion.
Hmm.
So he's done all right. I'm not complaining. I made a few bob, but what I'm trying to say is, Becky and I back startup. I'm behind 10 startups at the moment.
Yeah.
Now I know some will fail. So when you back a startup, you never tell them what to do. You're there to help them if they want your help.
Hmm.
But I've also got some exciting ones. So I'm lucky to be able to do that. But if you back startups, don't spend money you can't afford to lose.
Hmm.
No, you could lose it.
Hmm.
Make sure you've got your priorities right, your family. Make sure your mortgage is taken care of. Make sure your children are taken care of. Don't risk them. If you can speculate with the money you can afford to lose, it's different. So I started backing startups. And then, as you know, about 4 years ago, I was approached to be involved with a whiskey company. Now, whiskey is originally Scotland, but today there are about 30 English whiskey distilleries. And
Hmm.
whiskey is being produced all over the world as long as you make it correctly. So my last major whiskey project is Wiltshire Distilling. I'm very proud to be the chairman of a startup whiskey company. And, we've got a gin and a vodka where our whiskey's sitting in barrels growing because you can't call it whiskey until it has been in wood for a minimum of 3 years. So
Yeah.
that's my last exciting project. But again, I'm the chairman. I don't tell them what to do. I'm there to help and guide.
I love that attitude, and you're so passionate about your work.
I love it. And it keeps me happy. And I sit in this little office, which is 10 yards outside my
Yeah.
door. When COVID started, for fun on Facebook, I put on a suit and tie. My wife took a video picture. I put it on Facebook walking to work, going to work. This is how I come to work normally.
James, as you mentor others now,
Mhm.
what's one truth about long-term brand building that's often misunderstood or overlooked in today's modern world?
Well, I think everyone's in a hurry. I mean,
Hmm.
that's my concern in general.
Yeah.
Everyone's too short term. And you
Yeah.
think, click, click. And, you have to, the word patience
Yeah.
doesn't exist enough. And you've got to have courage. And therefore, if you work for a big company, the big company must allocate money for innovation, which they don't measure against the balance sheet or the P&L. They say there's $10 million a year we'll spend, or whatever the number is, and that must be spent. Because if it's part of the P&L, then things are very different. You've got to allocate it as an expense, good or bad. And you've got to separate, and you've got to give people authority to do it, good or bad. If you bring them into mainstream all the time, it never happens because mainstream's focusing on now.
Hmm.
I, now, me, as
Yeah.
opposed to what we are doing for the future. And
Yeah.
I worry about long-term planning because we live in an electronic world. Everything is instant gratification, instant this, instant that.
Yeah.
It is a concern I have. And you read about AI now, good and bad at AI, and you look at the decisions that have been taken politically around the world. So I do worry. Yes, I worry enormously about that. And I think I've been lucky. I think I've been part of a lucky generation. It's going to be a lot tougher. But
Mm.
you
Yeah.
still have to have courage to take, if you believe in something and you're passionate enough, fight for it.
Yeah, you're right. And this is happening all the time that people are the reason is like for high stress levels is just this that people are always in hurry. Nobody's concerned about other people. They're all focused on themselves and just getting the shortcut to reach somewhere, which I know that it would not help even if we reach there without having that capacity to sustain that. It would
Mm,
just be a kind of fantasy that we are just chasing to get fulfilled.
mm. It is a problem. I do worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I've had a lucky time and I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm still having fun.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I wanted to ask you that what brings you joy? But I am seeing that your work gets
Well,
you.
what brings me joy is my family.
Yeah.
People say, "What are you most proud of in your life?" I say, "My daughters. I've got two wonderful daughters.
Hmm.
One of my daughters is lecturer, worked for the United Nations. She lived in Liberia for 2 years,
Yeah.
and she's now Dr. Jessica Espey. So she's also got a PhD. She's a doctorate.
Uh-huh.
She's lecturing on global sustainability at Southampton University. My other daughter's working in the liquor trade. And obviously, I'm proud of my grandchildren. So my family, I've got 5 grandchildren, and then another two because my wife's sister was killed, and we took over her daughter. So as good as in Australia. So I'm proud of my family. That's my one pride, and that gives
Yeah.
me great pride. The second thing that gives me pride is helping people.
Yeah.
I'm educating two people at my old school in South Africa, two black students. I'm going to Zambia next month. I'm meeting two students I'm educating in Livingston where I was born. I put some wells in Zambia to give back people get clean water. So if you're lucky to help people,
Yeah.
within your means, and that gives me a great pleasure. And thirdly, I play sports. I've got some nice friends, and I'm lucky to have a bit of work to do. So I'm a lucky man. And
Yeah.
I count my blessings. I count my blessings also that financially, although it was a struggle at one stage, I'm in a comfortable place. And obviously, because you're comfortable, don't be arrogant. Just help people where you can.
Yeah, yeah, right. And never stop feeling that gratitude. Like always be
Correct.
grateful for what all we have, what all situations
Correct.
we are experiencing right now, even though they are not as good as we want them to be. But then it's always good that feeling good about them will get us more prosperity.
I think so. And I'm relaxed about life. I'm 82 years
Yeah,
of age. I'm budgeting my life at 95. When I go, I go. I'm very,
yeah,
I'm kind of a good spiritual attitude. I go to my church and
yeah,
I'm reflective. I look at the positives and I count my blessings. I'm
yeah,
very lucky to live in a very nice country. Politically, I may not be comfortable with what's going on, but I like living in the UK. You're
yeah,
living where you are. We compare to many parts of the world, we're in a good place.
yeah,
I do worry about the future of society. I worry about population growth. I worry about the fact, it's funny, one of the real problems of society is immigration. It's not a political statement because
yeah,
everyone's got a mobile phone. So you're sitting somewhere with no money but a mobile phone. Oh, I want to go live in America or England or France. And these are issues. And then global warming. 3.5%
mm,
global warming. So, Dubai is going to get even hotter.
yeah,
Today in England, it's 30 degrees today. There's
mm,
water ban. You can't use your hose pipe in Yorkshire now. So
yeah.
these are the issues of the world. And it is a great worry.
You're right, but then I believe that it's all universe things, and we don't have much control on things beyond what we can individually do.
You are right, but equally, we want to try and make sure governments are a little bit more responsible.
Yeah,
Please, God, they get responsible, whatever. And I think that the other thing that I think I worry about is the word respect. There's not enough respect. Respect for people, respect for race, respect for religion, respect for values. We need more respect. And I worry about this lack of respect
yeah,
in
and
general.
I also think and believe that when we have respect for ourselves, then only we can respect other people in
Mm,
real, genuine sense. But
correct.
because people are losing respect for themselves, and that's why they don't respect other people
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And that's what I worry.
Yeah.
You know, I'm enjoying life and I hope to enjoy it for a few more years.
I love your attitude, James. This is so beautiful to hear all this from you. And you are 82-year young, and I love that
Absolutely.
attitude.
Well, I
Yes.
exercise every morning. Nothing stupid.
Yeah.
I do every morning press ups, sit ups, exercise, because I think it's important to look after what you've got. You
Yes.
can't change what it. So if I'm 82, I want to be as fit as anyone who's 70. I can't
Mhm.
be as fit as anyone who's 50. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I was a runner until I was 73, but I've stopped running, obviously. But I do other things. I ride a stationary bicycle two or
Yeah.
three times a week. You've got to do within reason what makes sense.
Yeah. When you respect yourself, then you will respect your body, you will respect your routine, you will respect your time, you will respect everything about you. And when you respect yourself, then you will respect other people also. So this is what I think and believe. James, if tomorrow's generation of leaders were listening to us now, what's one unspoken truth they won't hear at Harvard or in any MBA program?
I think is to realize that if you're a leader, the only boss in business is the customer who votes with his or her feet. And the same applies to political leaders.
Mm,
Political leaders need to realize that if you live in, well, let's take Qatar, then ladies of Qatar got to understand the people. And now the people are not just Qatari, but people come from all over the world, the Philippines. You've got to respect everyone. And
yeah.
I think that's important. And, we're very lucky in this country that I think King Charles is a great man. And I
Hmm.
think I can't speak about Harry, but I think Prince William, they're courteous, they got respect. And I just think we've got to remember, ultimately, it's the people at the bottom right through the system. You don't talk down, you embrace people and you encourage them and people must have values. At the same time, what worries me is societies that get too socialistic don't realize that without capitalism and initiative, things don't happen. You can't tax a country into the ground. You've got to find a balance. And I worry about it as a someone who's followed politics for a long time.
As we're talking about it right now, I'm interested to know about your opinion on the way Elon Musk does business. What would you like to say on that? Like, is it what resonates with you, or do you think that it needs to be more?
I can't comment. It's hard to read Elon Musk. Equally, it's hard to read Donald Trump. As by coincidence, Elon Musk was born in South Africa, as you know.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't understand. Suddenly he says he's going to form a new political party. He's obviously a genius intellectually.
Yeah.
Some geniuses are intellectual geniuses. Are they balanced as society people? That's one of the problems of a brain. A brain can be brilliant in some ways, but is it balanced and respective? I've got much more respect for some of the other leaders who are giving into charity, or Warren Buffett, people like Warren Buffett, the
Yeah.
amazing things he did. I have respect for him because he cares about it. His father, Jimmy Buffett, and Warren, and he cares, and he wanted to make sure that he's giving back to society. So it's hard to read someone like Elon Musk, to be honest. So I'm not going to comment one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I worry about the United States. There we are. It's interesting to see what's happened in Canada. The ex-leader of the Bank of England is the president of Prime Minister of Canada.
Hmm.
So who knows?
Who knows?
And without being specific, I watched the Middle East to see how much delegation is taking place,
Yeah.
how many people are being embraced. I watched the role of women in the world, and how are women allowed to drive motor cars, and blah blah blah, things of this nature.
Yeah.
That's how I see society. Hopefully, we treat everybody with respect, male, female. I'm not sure about this other stuff that happens, but if you're not male or female, that's none of my business. But I focus on male and female. I hope there's just respect.
James, you have had access to the finest whiskey in the world. How many signed Johnny Walker or Chivas bottles are still there in your private bar?
Very few.
How many?
No, very few, because I drink according to my mood.
Yeah.
I've got a few bottles of Chivas Regal, Chivas Regal 18.
The signed one?
No, that was the last drop. The only signed ones were the last drop. But when I went to Scotland
Yeah.
2 years ago, I was presented some amazing signed bottles by the keepers of the Quaich for creating that society. And I've got some amazing old bottles of whiskey. I've got a few bottles of the last drop. I sold the first bottle of the last drop, the very first bottle, to someone in Japan for £50,000.
Yeah, I remember that. We talked about it, and it's very
I had to give a
interesting.
25% commission, but it's a pleasure.
Wow.
I've got about 10 bottles left of the last drop.
Okay.
But some of them are my daughters, and I've got a few bottles, but I'm not a believer in collecting. I have a nice wine cellar, but I used to have 600 or 700 bottles. But I only have about 200 bottles. And why? Well, because if I'm dead, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I live in the present as much as possible.
Okay. So, is there a whiskey moment you will never forget? A legendary celebration, a toast with someone famous, or even a hilarious mishap?
Well, I've been privileged. I'll show you a picture. I had a drink with this man. Who's he? That's John Major.
Yeah.
He came to visit us in Scotland, and we had lunch together. He was very charming. But in many ways, the man that I'm most proud of having met and had lunch with and got him to be my guest speaker in Scotland, a man I respected enormously. I was invited to be a guest of Forbes magazine. I sat next to him in New York and at a dinner, and then I got him to be my speaker in Scotland. And he was the most modest, humble man, and I was so proud of meeting him. Who's that? Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan.
Oh, okay.
And he wrote to me, to James Espey, best wishes, Ronald Reagan. And I
Wow.
got him to be my guest speaker in Scotland to the keepers of the Quaich.
Yeah.
And the next day, after he'd retired, obviously, and this was in the late 90s. And then the next day, I went to his hotel to say goodbye to him, and he was shaking hands with all the staff. And Nancy, his wife, said, "Ronald, we got to go." He said, "Nancy, if they want to speak to me, I want to speak to them."
Yeah.
He took them all by the hands, and then he left. And then 10 minutes later, he left. And then 10 minutes later, we drove out, and we found the SAS had been sleeping on the ground to protect him all night in the hotel. He was a modest man. He believed in a team. He built a team.
Yeah.
And I like that. So
Yeah.
I think Ronald Reagan was one of America's best ever presidents.
Beautiful.
I was very privileged. And then I was also very privileged to F.W. de Klerk, who with Mandela made the change in South Africa.
Wow.
And I gave a speech at a wedding,
Wow.
and I learned to speak Afrikaans because I had to And in my speech, I said, ladies and gentlemen, all in Africa, it's a privilege to be here today. I wish I could speak in both languages, but because most of my guests are from UK, I shall have to speak in English. But in my heart, I shall embrace those both languages.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he came up to me and said, James, we could have used you in the government. I said, sorry, FW, wrong party. And I'm still a member of the. And then I got him to be my guest speaker in Scotland, and we played golf together. Another more wonderful man who must be
Yeah.
crying in his grave because of some of the terrible corruption things happening in South Africa now.
Yeah, you have
But,
lots of
but I've been very privileged.
yeah, yeah.
One of the quotes: "You can walk with kings nor lose the common touch. You must never get arrogant." I tell a quick story which happened to me in 1989. The card system started on aeroplanes. And I'm lucky to have a gold card for life now with British Airways. I flew a lot. And I was flying business class to New York. And there was a very rude American gentleman in the front of the queue, in front of me, giving the lady behind the counter hell because the plane was late. It's not her job. And she just smiled. And then he pulled out his card and said, I've got a gold card. I demand an upgrade to first class. But I wear ties, any possibility. She just smiled. So when I got to the front of the queue, I said, Madam, may I congratulate you? You're a real credit to British Airways. How do you keep your demeanor when that man of Saruj? I have no trouble at all, sir. He's flying to New York, but his luggage is going to Karachi. You see, do you know who I am? Someone says. So they get on the microphone. Someone's lost you. He doesn't know who he is. Can you help him, please? Don't get carried away. Just count your blessings.
This is interesting, and you have got a lot of stories to share. I think we
I
are
got many more, but
short
not for
on
today.
time. Yeah. I would love to hear more of that, maybe in some other episode.
But I'm very keen. I'm very keen. I'm going to come back. I'm very keen for young people to buy these books.
Yeah, yeah,
Not for me. I
yeah,
don't want to. It's
yeah,
to help them
yeah,
accelerate their careers
yeah,
and
absolutely.
avoid mistakes.
James, if you opened your home bar tonight, what one bottle you will insist I try?
I'd probably give you a Chivas Regal 18, seeing it's the one I got fired for.
Okay, and why?
Well, I like it. It's a great whiskey. I mean, there are lots of great whiskey. I mean, I remember when I launched Johnny Walker Oldest. That was a great whiskey. And
Okay.
I got the name changed when they cheated a little bit. That's another story. By calling it 60. It was a 15 to 60-year-old whiskey. It was only 15 and a hint of 60. So I
Yeah.
called it 15 to 60. It was legal in those days. So I called it Johnny Walker Oldest. Then I changed companies. And suddenly I went to Taiwan and a new man had joined the opposition, was calling it a 60-year-old whiskey. So I got the law changed. The law now says, he has a tip for the customer, you can only mention the youngest age of any whiskey in a blend.
Okay.
If there's no age statement, it's never as old as it pretends to be. It doesn't matter what it is. And I think Blue Label is a great brand, but who knows how old it is?
Yeah.
And there are lots of other brands. And a lot of people in the industry are stretching their brands enormously, calling them all sorts of funny names, which means they're never that old, I always say.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it's better, by the way. It's psychological to some extent, like drinking old wine. We drink with our eyes. I've swapped many people's drinks around and fooled them. I knew someone said, I insisted drinking a pale rosé. So I took some white wine, put a teaspoon of red in it, blended it, gave them the drink. They loved it.
Wow. This is
So a
interesting.
lot of it is drinking with your eyes,
Yeah.
entertaining people, making people feel good. So I like Chivas 18. Obviously, maybe because it's you, I might find a sneak of the last drop.
Okay. Interesting.
When I launched the last drop, I'd give people just a tiny drop. I said,
Yeah.
I do apologize. I'm only giving you $250 worth tonight. And then I signed the bottles.
I love that. What's your favorite cocktail or whiskey pairing, and which pairing you secretly think is completely overhyped?
I've never been a big cocktail mixer. I like, various things. It's hard to say. I drink, for example, when I drink whiskey, I just drink with ice and water.
Mm-hmm.
When I drink a malt, I just drink it with a few blocks of ice. So some people say you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I drink a rum with Coca-Cola. My wife drinks Cinzano Bianco, which is out of fashion, but I drink it with it sometimes. I don't have a real favorite, but I like to experiment to this day. And what I'm quite enjoying, I know it's not fashionable, but a lot of pre-mixed drinks now. People say you can't drink canned drinks. Well, why not? Because the quality of the can has improved.
Yeah.
As long as the cans, I remember launching Coke in South Africa. The reason Coke wasn't launched in South Africa until 1969 was because the quality of the cans weren't good enough. Now, and cans, you get little cans. So sometimes I buy cans of different drinks and Caparilla, whatever it might be, and try them. And I experiment. I
Yeah.
still experiment.
Great.
I don't have one favorite.
Okay.
My son-in-law makes lots of mixed drinks. He's very good.
Yeah. Interesting. James, where we can find your books, and if you would like to talk a bit about your book as we wrap up today's show.
Well, first of all, if you go to Amazon, you'll find both of these books are on Amazon. Also, it's produced by Trigger Publication. So you Google Trigger, and if you particularly people want to buy a quantity of books and get a discount, it's published by Trigger. If you look up Trigger Publishing, they'll tell you where to get them, or on Amazon, I say. Obviously, they're in some bookshops, but not that many. Obviously, around the world, Amazon's easy because everyone knows Amazon.
Yeah.
But equally, go to Trigger, look at the two of them. And, and the point about the books is that if anyone wants to write to me, I'll be happy to respond to them. If they buy the book, they want a question. And if they buy the book, I'd love them to review whatever they think about it on Amazon. Say what you think, whatever you think, as long as it's the truth. My only hope is to help people.
Yeah.
And if I can accelerate their careers and help you find balance in life, because I talk about mental health, I talk about my own mental health problems in the books as well.
Okay.
I'm quite open about my life, the ups and downs.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, how you're using your experience to help people and the next generations through your book and through your communication, through your messages. My key takeaway from this conversation is this: legacy is a team sport. James Espey did not build these brands alone, and he never claimed to. He says it's a team effort. James showed us that legacy is a team sport and ego has no place in the room. From being fired for being too visionary to being honored 30 years later for that same decision, from saying no to Coca-Cola to saying yes to gut-driven ideas that turned into billion-dollar bottles. James proved something rare. Branding is not about clever slogans. It's about knowing your customer, fighting for your idea, and never letting committees kill the magic. If you're building something timeless, remember this episode and share it with someone who's ready to build with heart, not ego. I'll see you in the next one.